Imagine two people grew up in same country, same neighborhood, went to same school, were best friends as kids, but when they grew up, one became deeply religious and other one an atheist. Why? Is there something have to do with the intelligence? Is there a scientific reason or something deep happening in the human mind? The truth is actually surprising. And atheism does not just comes from logic, and we will soon discuss in this essay that what other factors are involved and how they relate to you if you consider yourself an atheist. But first, let's discuss what is atheism. To understand atheism, first we need to understand what is theism. Because the simple and direct definition of an atheist is someone who is not a theist. Theist is someone who believes that God exists or there are multiple gods exist. The term theism derived from the Greek word theos, which means God, and on the other end, atheism means someone who does not believe that a god or gods exists. Thus, to be an atheist on this definition, it does not suffice to suspend judgment on whether there is a God, even though that implies a lack of theistic belief. Historically, evidence of atheistic viewpoints can be traced back to classical antiquity and early Indian philosophy. In ancient Indian documents, a theist is called Astik, and an atheist is called as Nastik. In the Western world, Age of Enlightenment was the most prominent time for atheism. It was also called Age of Reason, and this was 17th century. This era or movement promoted the ideas of religious tolerance, individual liberty, and the progress in belief and logic. The scientific revolution in the 16th and 17th century also played a huge role in this movement. These ideas or movement, with a combination of philosophy and scientific revolution, came from figures such as Galileo Galilei, Isaac Newton, Johannes Kepler, and Francis Bacon, and many more. This age of enlightenment paved the way for the political revolutions in the 18th and 19th centuries and gave birth to liberalism, socialism, and neoclassicism. While there are religions that are atheistic, for example, Buddhism, that does not mean that atheism is a religion. To put it in a more humorous way, if atheism is a religion, then not collecting Pokemon cards is a hobby. So there are groups which will use words like agnostic, humanist, secular, bright, freethinker, or any number of other terms to self-identify. But to keep things simpler, we will stick with the word atheist in this essay. Atheists come in a variety of shapes, colors, beliefs, convictions, and backgrounds. This is because atheists do not have a common belief system, a sacred scripture, or an atheist pope to follow. This means atheists often disagree on many issues and ideas. While it all started in 16th and 17th century during the Age of Enlightenment, let us focus on how it became widespread in the 20th and 21st century. Atheism achieved a significant position worldwide in the 20th century. It is estimated that within just the last century alone, around 500 million to 1 billion people believed in the idea of atheism. Around the world, in many revolutions, the revolutionaries believed in atheism as well. There are many examples of evidence found in their written work. Just to name a few, Bhagat Singh from India, Vladimir Lenin in Soviet Union, Mao Zedong in China, Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, and many more. From these mentioned names, one thing come out which is common among them, and yes, that is revolution. Why there is such a correlation in atheism and revolution, which almost always turned out to be for the betterment of the humankind? Let's find out. So let's start with the French Revolution. This tiny movement within the French Revolution was called Culte de la Raison, or the Cult of Reason. The cult encompassed various elements of the opposition of the religious authority, including subordination of priests to secular authority, wealth confiscation from the church, and false religious beliefs, both petty and profound. In the spring of 1794, the cult of reason was faced with official repudiation when Robespierre, nearing complete dictatorial power during the infamous Reign of Terror, announced his own establishment of a new religion for the Republic, which was called the Cult of the Supreme Being. And we all know how it went for Robespierre afterwards. Another example is Marxist-Leninist revolutions. Even during that time, religion was called the opium of people, and how it justifies inequality among people and how it obstructs liberation. Marxism and Leninism argues that religion is a delusion used by the ruling class to keep the working class submissive, which we can easily see that even in 2026, as there are wars happening still using religion and capitalism altogether. To be an atheist is to be someone who rejects belief in God. There could be many reasons for someone to reject belief in God, and those reasons also depend on how the gods are being conceived. For example, for a God in a human form, the atheist rejects belief in God because it is false or probably false that there is a God. But for non-anthropomorphic, which means a God in non-human form like Allah and many others around the world, an atheist can reject belief in God because the concept of such a God is either meaningless, unintelligible, contradictory, incomprehensible, or incoherent. He or she rejects belief in God because the concept of God in question is such that it merely masks an atheistic substance. For example, God is just another name for love, or God is simply a symbolic term for moral ideas. Another argument floats around more nowadays, and it is not something new, which is if there is so much suffering, wars, crimes, and let's be honest, which is more compared to all the positive stuff happening around the world. So, if the world is such a miserable and sad place, then why God is just sitting there watching it all happening? Now, this can be a whole another topic for another essay. An atheist is able to understand the difference between belief and truth, fact and hearsay. You need to understand the difference between scientific belief and religious belief. You need to understand that you do not need a faith or God to be moral or kind or loving in this world. And you also need to understand what atheism is not. You do not need to give up on your culture or lifestyle to become an atheist. And you need to see the world through a logical and rational lens, and that is how you become an atheist. It is rarely a single moment or a single argument. For some people, it begins with questions about suffering and injustice. For others, it comes from exposure to science, philosophy, or different cultures and ideas. And sometimes it simply comes from realizing that belief and truth are not always the same thing. To put it in a straightforward, simple words, atheism is simple yet complex as well. It is not a group, a club, a cult, or a belief. It is basically a lifestyle with the absence of gods.